How you are in the world matters. Overwhelm is inevitable and optional. Time to listen up and make it optional for you.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. I'm so excited and grateful to have Kelly Meyerson with me. Kelly is an author, speaker, coach, and a sleep expert who will cultivate space for you to emerge from stress and overwhelm to lead and savor the life of your dreams. Now, I could read you tons more about Kelly. There's so much to say, but I'm going to let her tell you, because that line, emerge from stress and overwhelm to lead and savor the life of your dreams, that is such a rich gift to the world. So, Kelly, welcome. And before you tell me what you do now, I really want to invite you to tell me something about your adventures in overwhelm.
I love this topic so much. And when you and I connected, I was like, this is my sister over across the pond, and we are fighting the same good fight with smiles on our faces and the intention of joy. And so, yeah, overwhelm. Let's talk about that. So I hear the term adventures in overwhelm, and suddenly I'm Alice in Wonderland, and I'm going through the looking glass.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I see the caterpillar staring at me, and he's like, who are you? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're not good enough. And I think that's kind of where my journey started in overwhelm in childhood, and being born a sensitive soul and feeling everything and not understanding at a young age what that really meant, and identifying as being wrong in some way, which led to choosing always those perfectionism tendencies. So being the good girl, people pleasing, performing, going towards achievements. So setting off on the journey of life, just trying to get everything perfect, which means it's never going to be good enough, because perfection doesn't really truly exist. It's this mark that we try to measure to that isn't achievable. And so it became in my head this experience of always feeling inadequate or disappointing people, and labeling myself as a bad person because of that. And I look back at experiences in my life that could have been so happy and joy-filled, but I was just, under the doom of never getting it right. It also affected the way I made choices in my life. So when I was 16 and in high school, I was like, okay, what am I going to do as a career? I still had 2 more years of high school before going off to university. And so I was like, I have to find a career that I'm going to make good money, and I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to do a good job. And so everything I did with this like huge overwhelm intention. Like, I'm not going to just think about what I want to do as a career, but it's got to be like the best career, and it's got to make a lot of money, but it's also got to make a lot of impact. And I've got to learn to be independent, and I have to be responsible. And so you can kind of imagine that narrative that has just been in my brain for such a long time. So I think what really changed for me is I sort of woke up one day and I was like, this is stupid. This is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. And like, it's really not working. And I had these moments of clarity, reading books like authors like Brené Brown. Like, I read her book, I Thought It Was Just Me. And she talks so much about codependency and perfectionism. And I was like turning every page and going, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. I do that. And I never associated some of the qualities that I had as being perfectionist. So like giving, without any reserve to everybody and anybody who needed my help. I felt like that was me being kind. And I was like, no, that's people pleasing and codependency.
Oh man, I know so many people are going to be listening to this just nodding their heads, because
yes,
we think it's kind, right? We think it's selfish not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it
doesn't work, because you're when we overgive, it actually puts a burden on the other person, apart from what it does to us. But if you're coming from the place where you think it's selfish, actually it's not, because it's too heavy for the other person to carry, and they don't always want it anyway. And it's just when we learn that, I have this real battle with trying to explain kindness, that self-kindness is really tough, because it's not what we think of as kindness. You know, it's the boundaries, it's the no's, it's the me first, it's this is better for me than this is, from the food we put into our mouths to the time we go to sleep, and you know, all of it. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, carry on. This is just, I know this is going to hit listeners of this podcast, and they're just going to be nodding away going, Heidi, be quiet, let Kelly speak.
Oh no, I want to hear what you have to say too, because I know this topic is like in your heart zone, right? So those perfectionistic tendencies, and I was actually a couple years post divorce when I really identified my role in my failed marriage. And I was like, yes, he had addiction and alcoholism and social anxiety and all those challenges he was facing. And I had spent so much time blaming him, like it was his fault. I was just trying to help him. I was just trying to do all the things to make him okay. And I realized, oh, I had a hand in that. Like, you know, how hard it must have been at times for him to feel like he wasn't living up to my expectations of him, because that is like the double-edged sword. Like you're gouging yourself in the gut because you can't ever be perfect, but you're also hitting somebody else over the head with perfectionism and expecting them to always measure up.
Yeah. And I do all of this for you. What's wrong with you?
Right. I never nag you as a wife. I let you do everything you want to do. I support you. I talk you through things. I'm like, holy moly, how much overwhelm was he feeling by this kind of energy coming at him?
I'm so impressed that it only took you like the second year after 2 years after your divorce. I think it took me a lot longer to do that deep reflection. And it is that thing when we take responsibility for our own part in anything, well, first of all, we gain this huge amount of energy and freedom, because it's like, well, if I had that part, if I wasn't a victim, if I actually did have some part in that, that means that now I've extricated myself. Now I have better boundaries. Now I know how to love and value myself more. Man, I must be far more powerful than I realize, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish I could say that I was like good at that point, but I definitely wasn't. So like I recognize my codependency and I recognize my perfectionism, but it took so much longer, you know, probably a decade more before I was really ready to release it and really ready to do that deep forgiveness work.
Yeah.
That allows you to look back through the lens of forgiveness and kindness to myself, that, you know, I didn't choose to be codependent. I didn't, you know, it was just these behaviors that I developed over time that was kind of just allowing me to function in the world. And for him, he didn't
learn that behavior because that was the best way you could survive as a sensitive child. You know, I don't think even now we deal that well with sensitivity in humanity. But for children, I don't know, you know, it's always like so-and-so's great, but they don't speak up, or they're too shy, or they're too sensitive. I mean, I don't know how many times in my life I've been told to be less sensitive. Whereas now, you know, at 52, I'm like, yep, and it's my superpower. But it's taken me a very, very long time to recognize that as a strength. And when I see clients or people I'm working with struggling with that, my heart goes out to them, and I just think, you can't see what I can see. You are this incredibly important. We need you. We need your sensitivity. But yeah, there's a whole narrative there for us, isn't there?
Oh my gosh, it absolutely is. So yeah, it took a long time to kind of really heal from that and to accept my role in it and to really hit forgiveness. But I was able to come to this place where I could recognize, not only the mistakes that happened, but the steps my ex-husband took at the very end to really care about me as a person. So in the couple weeks before we were going through our divorce proceedings, he got fired from his job in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. We were in the middle of selling a house that we had only just purchased less than a year before. So there's all kinds of penalties in the states associated with, selling your house before it's been 2 years that you've been in it. So all of this was going on. And one of our struggles had been my career. I was doing better financially than he was. And so when we stood in front of the judge and we're going through the divorce proceedings, the judge asked on 3 occasions during the proceedings if he was looking for alimony from me because he didn't have a job. I made more money than him. He would have been completely entitled to that. And I had identified that if he did that, like the bitterness factor was going to be super high. But he didn't. Every time that the judge offered that to him and reminded him it was an option, he said no. And just like a little over a year ago is when I recognized the gift in that he gave me, to not have to carry bitterness, to have a clean break and start over. And so now I've been divorced for 15 years and I've been married to my husband for 9. So I kind of started completely over, and that seemed so terrifying at 29, And now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, what an amazing opportunity to really start again and to be with someone who gets me, and who, of course, I try to micromanage him, and there are those codependent tendencies, but he's just kind of like, whoa, no, you don't need to do that. We could be partners. You don't have to heal or help me. And so I don't. And sure, the instinct is there, like, oh my gosh, I could totally solve this problem for him. Right. But I don't do that with him. We're truly, collaborators in this marriage and in our journey and in being parents to my 7-year-old son. And that feels so much more freeing. So I can tell you one example of like how I avoided the overwhelm. So I was in my late 30s, had my son. We were together for 6 years before we got married. Obviously, I was divorced at 29. So my whole timeline was thrown off. I'm sure everybody can appreciate that. I was supposed to get the job, get married, have kids, have the house, have a dog, blah, blah, blah. Got some of that, lost some of that, started over again. So I've always been sort of controlling, which is that little, nasty little side addiction that you have when you're a perfectionist. Control is sort of how you manage everything. And I knew that I could super easily be an overwhelming, overburdening, controlling new mom. And I said, I am not doing that. And I held myself accountable to that. And this was a big change in my journey. And I knew from the beginning I was not going to micromanage my husband. I work with kids, like in my background and my career. And so I know kids, development, all those pieces of things. I've been around a lot of small children. He hadn't. And I didn't approach it with like, I'm the expert, he's the novice. I approached it, we're both novices and we're going to figure this journey as parents out together.
Kelly, that's amazing. That's
yes.
like the most stressful possible time, with the most important thing that you could be doing, you decide to completely change a habit.
Yeah, I
That
relinquished.
must have taken a lot of courage.
It was definitely some white knuckling at points because you're like holding on for dear life, like, oh, he's going to do it that way, right? Okay, you're not going to say anything. Like, I really coached myself through it. So let me tell you what the results of that were, because people probably relate, especially new parents or overwhelmed moms, right? So the result of that was we figured it out together. When we were in the hospital, my husband changed every diaper. Okay. I didn't change a diaper in the hospital. He was there with me after I gave birth. He has been at different points in time at some level of being a stay-at-home dad. My husband is a musician, so his work kind of goes in flux. And so he has been able to do all of the things that, you know, the mom would traditionally do as the dad he doesn't need me to say anything. So like if I leave the house for the day, I don't have to give him a list of all the things he has to do with my son. He knows. Do we do everything the same way? No. You know, if I leave it to them to pick out the outfit for the day, is it going to match? Probably not. Is it okay? Absolutely. Because I didn't have to do it. And suddenly, you know, as moms, we struggle and we say, I don't have any time for myself and the things I want to do. But when you relinquish that control of how and what everybody does, oh my gosh, there's so much extra time because I'm not spending it micromanaging my family. So that was one of the huge results.
That's huge. Absolutely huge. Because in general, I would say a lot of women are doing the emotional work in relationships and the holding of everybody's calendar in their mind, which leaves very little room for themselves, which can lead to bitterness. It certainly leads to huge overwhelm. And then it's like, well, I still hear women saying, my husband can't do that. I'm like, it's not that difficult. It's that we've not let go. And yeah, there are certainly some men who will tell you that they can't do that. But that doesn't mean they can't. That means there's a negotiation to go on there. So, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a very old traditional role of control. You know, the being manager of the household, the managing the family. And it's difficult, but if we want things to be better, if we don't want everybody's crap in our head, we do have to let some of it go, and we have to let it be done a different way. And yeah, I mean, I was divorced. I started again at 26. So yeah, I really recognize that kind of rebooting. And I recognize also that because I was a single mum for most of the time, I didn't meet my partner till my kids were pretty big, that, you know, I was the boss of the household. And so for me, when my partner moved in, there was a lot of like clashing for me because he moved into my home, and I was like, you know, and I made such a conscious effort to let go, to just, you know, but there were times when I just didn't manage it. And there's that clash because I had to be the only person doing everything. But it is so worth letting go. So worth letting go. Because seriously, a lot of the stuff that we're holding on to, it's not actually that interesting. It's not actually that important, you know. There's like, and then when you actually start looking at the things that you really want to do with your life, when you find that real heartfelt gift to the world, you can only really do that if you let go of the kind of lesser things that at the time feel like they're so important. And it's difficult, right? Because, you know, children are so precious and we want everything to be right for them. But we don't have that kind of control because life is messy. So why not let somebody else take some of the mess, even if they don't do it right? Because we can do that and it's worth doing. And yeah, I love that you shared that. That's a huge, actually, that really does hint at some kind of almost self-induced overwhelm, that when we hold on to things that, really, do you have to do that? what would happen if it wasn't done your way? Would it really matter? You know, there's like, you've got to work out your non-negotiables, I think. You've got to work out what actually matters and let go of some stuff, because you cannot do everything. You know, in life, I talk about this a lot, this whole, your to-do list will never end. It can't ever end. And unless you want to rock up at the end of your life going, well, I did a lot of my to-do list, you're still not going to get to the end of your life and go, I finished it, because there isn't a finishing. So in which case, if your life isn't about getting stuff done, what is your life about? And what can you let go of? Because you can't do it all and you can't have it all, but you can live with more joy, live with less overwhelm and more ease. But you've got to deal with the overwhelm first. You've got to deal with the overwhelm, because when you're in the overwhelm, you genuinely think that that stuff matters. You genuinely think that there is no choice, that you either do it yourself or it won't get done. And that is mistaken, faulty thinking, you know, that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be challenged gently and lovingly. And firstly by ourselves, I think. Is there an easier way? What would this look like if it was easier? And it's very, very difficult to do that when we get stuck in a state of overwhelm, because overwhelm closes the brain down. So you can only see rock and a hard place. And there's all these hidden possibilities where actually it's okay. There's like, you know, so yeah. Thank you for hinting at that mum overwhelm. That was a good one.
And I think what you just said there is so huge. Getting to that place where you're so overwhelmed that your nervous system is in fight or flight. Yeah. And that is something I understand from the occupational therapist perspective. And I'm trained in sensory integration. So
please tell me about that.
Yeah. So in this context, it's so great because it's so much easier for people to relate to. So your nervous system has these two ways that it functions, sort of like yin and yang. It's your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, is that ability to run, to fight, to freeze. It's a protective measure in our nervous system. It's a very old, primitive part of our brain that we used for survival. So the problem with that is that most of us, for the most part, we're not existing in survival mode anymore. But our brain doesn't know the difference from what's actually happening versus what we're playing in our mind. We're so good at imagining and dreaming and envisioning that sometimes the things we're envisioning are putting us into that state of flight and fright. So the other half of that is the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's our rest, digest, all of those functions in our body that keep us at this nice homeostasis. So what happens when you're stuck and you're always in that state of overwhelm? Okay, so number one, what's going to go right away, right? From the parasympathetic. You're not going to digest food well, you're going to have stomach issues, which means people retain weight. It means that you don't get that rest and that letdown so that you can be restful and sleep, replenish all of your neurochemistry. You know, so you're missing out on all of those life functions that keep you feeling healthy and good. But it also puts you in a state when you're in that fight or flight, you're not having access to your cortex. You're fighting and you're not embodied in your body and in the present moment and experiencing things. You're either like stuck in the past or you're stuck in the future. So if we can learn to kind of come out of that sympathetic nervous system, get into our parasympathetic nervous system, to give our body a chance to rest and recharge, and give our minds a chance to be in that envisioning and problem solving place, in that imagining what else could be possible here if this wasn't what it is. So I love that you said that, because I think that is one of the things that really helps me. What else? What else could we do here? You know, if this wasn't what it was. And I'll tell you, very interestingly, right before my ex-husband told me he wanted a divorce, I was sitting on the couch at night and he was supposed to come home and he didn't come home, and I didn't know where he was. He had been almost 90 days sober. So I was like, is he drinking? Did he get in an accident? He's not responding to his phone. I panicked and I had a panic attack, and I had never had a panic attack before in my life. And as I was sitting there, from somewhere in the cosmos, this voice came into my being that said, what if this was not your life? Let's start envisioning what your life would look like if this was not it. And it took me out of that paralysis of the panic attack, got me into my body, got me into dreaming and thinking, like, where would I go? Like, I had been in this space and we did not have a great marriage. There were a lot of problems from day one. And so it put me in this space of being able to accept the idea that divorce might be coming and it might be okay. And starting over might have some really great possibilities. So I think, some strategies people can use, because I know people are like, well, how the heck do I do that when my heart is racing and like a voice isn't showing up in my head like it did for you, Kelly? So what am I doing? So the first thing you can do when you're in that state of overwhelm is not try to get to the to being, right? So the way that you can get to being wherever you are in whatever moment is to sit down, to plant your feet on the floor or the ground, to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just experience breathing. Okay. So partially what that's doing for you is getting oxygen into your body, because you were probably breathing with the upper half of your lungs and not oxygenating yourself well enough, which is important for your body and your brain. And it also gives you just a brief moment of respite and rest where you don't have to be in the doing of things. And, you said before about, we choose this overwhelm often for ourselves because we can't relinquish that control. So taking that moment to acknowledge that you just need a chance to take a breath and get back into your body. And I'm talking like the deepest breaths you've taken that day, feeling all the way into your belly, into your pelvic bowl, feeling the breath coming in and out, closing your eyes and just being aware of yourself, who is perfect as they are. That's the only perfect, right? Yourself. You were born wonderful and beautiful and worthy, and you are not the roles you play and the things you do. You are a heavenly soul in an earthbound body. And when you sit and you breathe, you connect with that part of yourself, that actual self, who I love the term being the watcher. If you've ever followed Eckhart Tolle, I love Eckhart Tolle. He talks about being a watcher, watching your thoughts, watching what's going on for you, and putting some distance between those racing thoughts and you. That is not you. That is your mind doing what your mind does best. But you can also put your mind to work for you. You can hijack your limbic system. That's your emotions that get out of control. And you can start to feed it with really good stuff, gratitude, affirmations, taking a break, getting rest, getting good sleep, those self-care foundational pieces that, like you said, that kindness for yourself and love for yourself before anybody else. Not because you're selfish, but because you care so much about everybody and the work that you do that you're willing to give to yourself first, because you get out of that overwhelm to overflow. So rather than being this limited cup of energy you have for the day that's depleted by noon, you have this wellspring that you've tapped into. So the well is never empty. It's never dry, because you continuously fill it and connect to source, so that what you're pulling from is not your earthbound body, but the tap in to your soul and to the source of where you come from. And I know this is like heavy woo-woo stuff for some people, and they're like, whoa, you just like took it way farther. And listen, I've been in there too. Like, this is a little woo-woo for me, but whatever your faith base is or your spiritual practice is, we can all acknowledge that it's a miracle that we were brought onto this planet, right? So why not? Go ahead.
I also think that another way of phrasing it that's I find really helpful is to say, when you take a break from your busy, overwhelmed mind, which tends to nag, tends to go for the loop of doom to keep you safe from an evolution point of view, when you take a break from that and just place your attention into your body and feel your feet on the ground, you can start to observe the fact that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts can carry on doing their thing. You don't have to control them. You don't have to do anything. You can watch them. You can be aware of your body. Your body is amazing. It will reset itself. Just give it some space, give it a moment to reset, and connect with that place within you that knows there is nothing wrong with you, because there isn't anything wrong with you. Just connect with that. Connect with the part of you that knows there is nothing wrong with you. And the more often we connect with that part, and the more often we're able to say, I love myself first. There's nothing wrong with me. I love myself first. And why? Well, firstly, you have a duty to love yourself first. It's your job to love yourself. It's not anybody else's job to make you feel good and to solve your problem. It is your job. And when you start from there, that is so much better for everybody around you. It's not selfish. It's necessary. Because we need you. We need everybody connected to themselves, knowing that they are okay. Because when everybody starts from there, and when we realize that our human minds have evolved to be overwhelmed very quickly in order to save our life, but they're not evolved to make us happy. So just knowing that and being aware of that, and not always paying attention to the nonsense, but regularly connecting to that place where I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. Just need to take a moment to connect. If everybody, can you imagine a world? I imagine a world where everybody's able to do that. And that changes the world, because when we move from that place, the words that come out of our mouth are kinder. And we're less emotionally reactive. We're less in this state of, when we act in a state of overwhelm, we're stuck in a rock and a hard place. We think there isn't enough to go around. We think that there's danger, and there's not. There is plenty to go around, and there's not danger. And we behave in ways that are inappropriate towards each other. And so if everybody can get to that place of connection with themselves and knowing they're okay, the world changes. And it has to start with each of us individually. And that very, very simple practice, that changes your life, ripples out to everybody around you, and the world changes quietly, gently, without fuss. It doesn't require this huge effort. It requires the connection to yourself and the taking responsibility and the understanding your mind. You don't need to know loads of stuff. You don't need to read all the research. You don't need to go and sit in a cave for 7 years. Just know your mind does bonkers stuff. It's normal. Everybody's mind does that, because the human mind has evolved to keep us safe but not happy. You want to be happy? Don't pay attention to your mind all the time. Take a break into the body. Yeah, we've got very similar kind of ways of doing that. And I love hearing your way, because I don't believe there's one way. I believe there's everybody's voice and ways of doing things as part of the puzzle, and we speak to each other at different points in our journey, and we resonate with different voices. And it's so important to realize that what works for you today might not work for you next year, and what you need to hear it from the person you need to hear it from now. And everybody just speaking about that I just think is a gift. That's what I love about the online space. That's what I love about podcasting, is we can, get everybody's voice out, because everybody's voice is for one person, and the right words at the right time.
Definitely the right words at the right time. And I feel fortunate that I've caught the right words at the right time from the right person that has really, it's really special when somebody can say something and make you go, Oh, that's so interesting. I never thought about it that way, to break us out of those thought patterns that probably aren't working for us in some way. And I love it. I think I agree with you. I think everybody's journey can look a little bit different, and everybody's voice, who, those of us who are out here who just feel this pull and this need to help other people to follow in our footsteps and see that there's another way. Or even, you don't have to follow my footsteps, but join me on the journey and take your little side path. We're all going someplace amazing, but it doesn't have to be the same path that we're taking. Every path can look a little bit different. I love that. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And the other thing I was thinking as you were saying that is, it's really about what resonates with you in terms of being joyful. So, like, take, for example, like a morning routine, what that would look like for every person is different. You know, for me, I like to do a little journaling, a little card pulls. I like to do a little writing. I drink my coffee. I sit on my meditation mat and I breathe. I might not even meditate. Sometimes I just sit there in stillness and breathing and just feeling good about being alive. And so for somebody else, it might be, getting that run in when they first wake up and pounding the pavement or reading the newspaper. Maybe that lights you up. But when you find the things that light you up and you start to fill your life with more of those, that's when the magic happens. That's when you're like, oh, so I could just do the things that I really like to do and I can still be productive and happy and be available for people in my life. Like that, to me, is amazing. My God,
I'm so with you. I actually wrote in a Facebook group the other day. So basically, it was something like, what's your biggest fear? And I think I put something like that this is not real, that I'm in a dream where I get to be happy. I get to dig into my journey, my experience, my qualifications, my unique way of saying it. And I get to put that out into the world and work with the people, from my heart to theirs, and call in the people that I really want to work with, that energize me, and I get to help them. And that's a real thing. I don't have to go back to work, that. And it gets to, and I follow the breadcrumbs of ease and joy and fun. And I reject the hard work, push, overwhelm, exhaustion. That's a real thing. Because I'm like, maybe it's not real. Maybe it's a dream. There's this, all of us, there's I've tapped into this amazing wave of female entrepreneurs, mainly female entrepreneurs, because I think maybe for women, it's just forced it, because when you have children and you need to make life work in it, it becomes more pressing. Maybe, I don't know, or maybe I don't know what it is. But anyway, I've tapped into this amazing wave of female entrepreneurs saying, yeah, that doesn't work. The way things are set up doesn't work for me. I'm going to do it this way. And when you tap into that, when you hear their stories, you start to collaborate, you start to, you read and you just work on yourself, and then you step up. It's like, oh my God, this is a real thing. And then you become colleagues, and then you help each other and you lift each other up. And it's just inspiring and magical and energizing. And it feels dreamlike, but it's not. It's real, and it's joyful work. And for me, there has to be, life to me is about doing things my way. It's about success my way, which for me means joyful, meaningful, impactful work and vibrant health. So when I could say, without sacrificing my health or relationships, no, I'm going to go one further than that. I'm going to go through improving my health and relationships, because it's all intertwined for me. When we take responsibility for ourselves, when we get to that place of being able to forgive, letting go, getting better boundaries, deep, deep love and self-care, and it's endless, it's not like I never mess up. It's not like I never spit my dummy. It's not like I'm always feeling courageous and energetic and joyful, but it's the process of constantly just tapping into that internal navigation system and daring every day, choose yourself and your life. And when you start from there, before doing anything else, before even moving and getting your coffee, choose yourself. Choose to love yourself first. That changes things, and it changes things incrementally rather than, I think, well, as we know, the human mind doesn't like change. It would rather keep us miserable because at least then it knows what's happening. But change is scary for many reasons. So if you can kind of bypass the amygdala and go, it's just a tiny change. I'm just going to wake up in the morning and go, I choose me first. That ripples out, but it's not a fighty battle. I used to be so feisty in my change making, and now I'm just like, no, I'm just going to stand up and say I'm doing it this way. And you can like it or not, but I love it and I'm happy, and I've never felt so well. And I think I'm much more fun to be around. So if that inspires you, come hang out with me. Here's my podcast. Here's this, rather than that kind of like, I'm going to change the world, fight, battle, 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 There's just like this whole new way, isn't there, of
it is
joy, literally joy. And I love what you're saying about, and then you've got this overflowing sauce. It's like this magic porridge pot.
Exactly. It doesn't end. It's unending. It's always available to you. I have this little note that I wrote myself, and it's in my bathroom sitting on my little shelf, and it says, you get to decide. And it's such a great place because I find I do a lot of thinking and writing and idea conception in the shower. The water like really opens up the thought and the flow. And I also do a lot of my overthinking in the shower, in the bathroom, getting ready for the day. Like, when you try to like pre-plan the argument you're going to have with someone, and like that didn't actually happen, but you're totally in the moment and stressing out about it. And, your sympathetic nervous system is kicking into high gear. So now I have my little sign that says, you get to decide. And I really need to sort of put that on a little pretty picture and like stick it everywhere in my house. So every time I get in that stuck spot, I tell myself, I get to decide. I get to decide to be a victim or not be a victim. I get to decide what I wear. I get to decide how I spend my time. I get to decide to overthink about this or be overwhelmed. And I decide, no, I don't want that. I decide joy. I decide ease. I decide the real positive feminine energy that just feels good to me. I've done so much work over the years, and I did so much of the putting that push and masculine energy into everything I did. I love that I did a master's degree, but I did it in 18 months. Full time while going to school full time or working full time, and doing that all at the same time, and push. And like, I wouldn't allow myself to just experience and learn. I had to get, all A's if I could do it, and get honors. And I pushed. And so like, I don't really want to do that anymore. I sort of have this like, I could do that. And I still find myself sort of like arriving for the challenge of like, oh my God, I could push myself and I could go crazy and I could be up until midnight and I could write 5 books this week. And
you've got to check that one, haven't you? I have to constantly check that one. Like, I'll just push for this short amount of time until that's out. And then, and I find it difficult because people say, where's your book? Like, well, it's not on the list yet because I'm doing this, but you need to get your book out. Well, these are my rules, and it's not happening yet. And that's okay, because yes, it would be lovely, but it won't be the same book if it's pushed out into the world as if it will be a different book. You can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
You walk the walk and you talk the talk, or the book will be different, and then it won't be the book you intended to write. So, I love this conversation. Please, can you tell us more about your sleep? Because you've written... Tell us about the chapter in the book, because that book is amazing, and I love that you have a chapter in it. So tell us about this.
So I wrote a chapter in the Ultimate Guide for Self-Healing, Volume 4. If this is a new, you haven't heard of it before, This is the fourth. The first one came out last year, shortly after all of us went into lockdown all over the world. My friend and coach, Laura DeFranco, woke up with this idea March 20th last year and just got rolling on it. And so this book, it's really funny because I think about that piece of perfectionism where you also procrastinate. I don't know if people have made that link. You probably have, but so I knew I wanted to write a chapter. I knew I wanted to write a chapter on sleep. And, one day I was having a different conversation with Laura and she was like, can I just ask you something? And I was like, oh God, what is she going to ask me? And she said, why haven't you submitted to write a chapter yet on sleep? And I was like, I don't have a good answer for you. I said, I'm going to do it. And I was like, yeah, I just need to do it. I think I was overthinking it. I was overwhelmed by it, never good enough. All those patterns came out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to have fun with it. So in the book, the way the books are formatted, each author of their chapter tells a little bit of a story and then they give a tool. And the great part about the books is you can literally heal at home with whatever you have. You don't have to go buy anything. So you buy the book and you have 25 tools from different professionals and experts. So I talk about my journey with really poor sleep when my son was little. I mean, he literally would wake up sometimes every hour and I would have my little camera video feed, so we up leveled when I had him. It wasn't just like listening to them on the monitor. It was actually watching them in their crib. And I had 2 feeds. Yes, absolutely. I did that one, got to have every feed,
even know that
every
was
angle.
Possible.
Oh my gosh. It I'm sure it's even like now you could probably stream it to your phone. And I do not need to do that because I just like took it to the 10th degree. And so I'd be watching this little blue screen and, please don't wake up, please fall back to sleep. And I was just in a state of overwhelm. My bedroom was in complete disarray. I'm very honest about like the disaster zone that it was.
But not sleeping is where insanity lies. I mean,
oh gosh, yes.
I didn't sleep for like 5 years raising 2 small boys. And yeah. I just remember those times when if I could have 4 hours sleep, imagine how it would feel if I could have just 4 hours in one go. 4 hours, like, for God's sake. Yeah, it's like your bedroom was a mess. I'm surprised you knew that your bedroom was a mess because it's.
I'm sure I beat myself up. I can't remember much from that time. I was so sleep deprived. But I just kind of was so overwhelmed and stuck in this zone. And I would actually have panic attacks when it would get dark out, just knowing like that I would potentially not be sleeping very well. And so when the light of day came, I would feel great. I'd be so happy. I used to, I'm an occupational therapist. I work with kids. I used to just create these beautiful little play spaces for him to explore, depending on what age and stage he was going through. And so I finally realized like I should be applying this to my environments. This is something I know as an occupational therapist. Mm-hmm. Like we look at the environment, the occupation, and the person and altering them to make things work better and be more functional. So the tool that I teach is how to start to create a sacred sleep space for yourself.
I love that.
Improve your sleep. Yes. So do you want me to go on more about sleep?
I think you have to tell my listeners how to create this. It just sounds so lovely. This sacred sleep space. And yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on remove the tech from your bedroom and the whole.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That is definitely helpful. It is disruptive in so many ways.
Yeah.
Whether it's the EMF, whether it's the flashy screens that are keeping our eyes alert, or it's waking us up, or, we're scrolling through social media And listen, I am not the judge of anyone. I have done all of the bad habits. So I can tell you from personal experience what does not work.
That's why we talk about this stuff, is because this is what we've had to do. You know, I switched the Wi-Fi off at night. All devices are downstairs. You know, it's like sleep is precious. Sleep. Your brain needs sleep. You need sleep. There's so much going on there. So tell us something that we can do to create this gorgeous sounding sacred space and get that sleep. Tell us something like really practical, and it just sounds so yummy.
It is so yummy. It is so yummy. So the first thing I asked you to do in the book is to sort of close your eyes and envision like the best place you've ever slept, whether it's a hotel,
Nice.
Whether it's a bed and breakfast, it's something you've seen on HGTV, like what would be like your dream sleep space, and sort of determine what are the sensory qualities there. So what does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Is there music? Are there essential oils that you're diffusing that make you feel more calm? What is the texture? How is the lighting? All of those details. So I pretty much can guess that your ideal bedroom does not include baskets of unfinished laundry, dust bunnies under the bed. You know, I laugh in the book about like my water glasses sitting on the dresser, never bringing them downstairs, like everything unfinished. Imagine all the unfinished, the overstuffed, just too many things, the tchotchkes, that it just feels like such an overwhelming space. So making it a sparse space is one place you can begin. So even just removing anything that is not supposed to live in the bedroom. So, and finishing those baskets of laundry, or at the very least, don't let them live in your bedroom if you're not done with them. Don't let them come up until you're ready to finish them, or don't let them come into the bedroom. Let them stay in the living room at the very least, so that when you go to your bedroom, it is a space that's a respite. The other thing I say is make your bed every day. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It can literally be just pull up the covers and put the pillows at the top of the bed. It does not have to be fancy unless you love fancy. And then go for it, because that's joyful for you. It's fun. I love making my bed. It's become such a joyful thing. Until like probably even a year ago, I would always hear my mom like, make your bed. I'm like, I don't want to make my bed. Right. So we have these like ideas about it now, because I know when I come into my bedroom at the end of the day, it's clean, it's sparse, nothing is there that doesn't need to be there. My bed is made. It looks like I'm entering a beautiful hotel room, and I can just rest and sleep.
Wow.
There's no TV. Like you said, we don't have TV in the bedroom, which my husband and I consciously chose, like when we first started dating and we were living together. We were like, no, we're not putting a TV in the bedroom. That's going to block us from having any kind of connection in the bedroom. So we don't have that. And I don't sleep with my phone next to my bed either, because I know how easy it is to pick up that habit again. And it's so disruptive to our sleep. So when I teach about sleep and I help people from a practical perspective, and believe me, I can talk to you about the science of sleep because I'm a total nerd about it. I will geek out on all of the facts about sleep and sleep cycles. And so I can totally talk about all that. But I think what people really want to know is, what do I do? Yeah. So if your bedroom is a disaster, some of those tips that I just shared are great. So that's your environment. There are 3 interlocking circles that I teach from. It's environment, it's your mindset, and it's your habits. And that intersection of those 3 circles is your best sleep ever. Okay.
Best sleep ever.
Best sleep ever. This is what I'm about for people. Yeah. Everybody wants that, right?
Yeah.
So, and we need it, as you said just before. So the second is your mindset. So I lovingly call these people, my people, the busy brain. Okay. So whether your head hits the pillow and you hit the state of anxiety and you start thinking all these repetitive thoughts and you're stressed, or like yourself, you're an entrepreneur, you're excited, you're creative, all of a sudden all the ideas start flowing, or some combination of that and all your to-do lists. Okay. So this is my biggest tip for my busy brain people. You're not going to get into bed with a busy brain. You're not going to get into bed without giving yourself time to dump your brain. So you're going to do a mind dump 30 minutes before bed, not in bed. We don't want to pair thinking and busy mind work with your bed. Bed is rest and sleep. Okay. You're going to go someplace else quiet with a notebook, and you're just going to write everything that's on your mind. So if you're someone who, like, you sit down with a piece of paper and it just starts to flow, go ahead, write it all down. Not organizing it, not prioritizing, not putting in lists of importance. Just get it all out. Everything, the to-do list, the grocery list, the thing that's bothering you, the exciting projects you have in mind, put them all down.
What I really like about this is there's some, I'm visualizing these boundaries. It's like you've created this safe container, and then you're saying, and nothing's allowed in that because we've now created it, and there is no place. So it's like, in the same way the laundry's not going in there, the stuff of the day is not allowed in there. And I'm seeing it as a visual boundary because I'm very visual, and I'm loving that. This is quite similar to the work I do with people on work-life leakage, stopping leaking into your life. You're stopping life leaking into your sleep. So I do end of the let go of your day practices, but I myself personally, when I haven't taught this yet, I do let go of your day. So there's let go of your work day, but I personally also do let go of your day before getting into bed. So I'm doing that as I teach what I call neutral noticing practices. So it's getting out of your head into your body, notice completely neutrally, and then you identify where any of the day is. So I've already done the brain dump and the rest of it. And it's just like, is there any physical parts of your day still holding on? And then just let them just go, and they don't come into the bed. So I love that you're doing that too. It's like this, there's an appropriate place for this stuff. And if you take it to bed with you, it's going to wake you up.
Yes, exactly. You're not going to sleep well.
It's going to wake you up and go, come on, let's go sort it out. No.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And that also is a wonderful way, like you said, to just kind of release it. Let it, feel, acknowledge where you're thinking, where you're feeling, what is just on you that you need to shed and let go so you can actually get great rest. So that final interlocking circle is habits. And I love to talk about the habits that don't help our sleep. So we talked a little bit about technology, and that is for sure a big one, right? So if your technology in your bedroom could definitely be interrupting your sleep. So 2 to 3 hours before bed, we should be ceasing that access point of light into our eyes. So whether that's screens, bright overhead lights, whatever it is for us, we want to just tone that down because it helps your body really lean into that sleepy feeling. And the worst time of night to have light into your eyes is between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. It's super disruptive to your sleep cycle. So those of you who have that habit of, I can't sleep, let me pick up my phone, very bad for you. Don't do that. Give up that right now.
I know I see people on Facebook going, I can't sleep. I've woken up and I can't sleep. And I'm like, well, you're not going to sleep now because you just put direct sunlight into your retina. And
totally
you're going, oh, it's morning.
Good morning.
Your body's going, no, it's not. And I haven't finished mucking my brain out. It's like, it's so disruptive. And this is part of the problem I have, is that we have set up our society for insanity, overwhelm, and ill health. Not happiness. It's bonkers. Yes. These things are tools to make our life happier, and they are destroying our health and happiness. So I'm really glad that you're saying that too, because I feel like I'm being bossy sometimes.
And you know what? Sometimes we need to put on our bossy pants a little bit because people need to hear, I think we hold on to that scarcity of the hours of the day, and I can give up a little bit of sleep and then I have a little more time. But here's the thing. So if you're not sleeping enough, you're not replenishing your neurochemistry, you're not allowing your body to repair itself. So what happens? 48 hours, you're not sleeping well, your immune system starts to break down. 72 and you feel crazy. So depleting yourself of sleep is not going to inherently make you more productive.
It's a form of torture.
It is a form of torture.
It's a form
and in some places it's not allowed.
Yeah. Sleep deprivation is really serious and we just don't take it seriously. I mean, if you like, I love what you just mentioned, neurochemistry. You know, the spent neurotoxins are washed out. This is so important. You know, we've got serious mental health issues. We've got increased dementia and Alzheimer's. What are we doing? You know, our brains need sleep. Full stop. Full stop. That's it. It's not optional.
It's a life imperative. It's like not right. It's not optional. You need it to survive and to be at peak health and mental performance.
But the narrative is that highly successful people have like 4 hours sleep, and people say things like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I'm like, well, actually, let's just look for a moment at the state of the world and powerful people who are not sleeping. Maybe if they had more sleep, we'd have more trees, and let's not go there. But, you know, seriously, making decisions when you're sleep deprived is
bad.
Apparently very similar to making decisions under the influence of alcohol.
True.
Making decisions when you're overwhelmed, which you're more prone to when you haven't slept because you're more emotionally reactive in general, that leads to really bad decisions because you cannot see the better possibilities. So we need to take sleep really seriously. If you're in a position of power, if you're in charge of anything, even if it's just small puppies, you need your sleep. So can we start changing the narrative? Smart people sleep. Smart people prioritize sleep. We're seeing this more and more, you know, biohackers, people who are really at the forefront of, you know, sleep. We need sleep.
Yes.
And
we need sleep.
You tell people how to get the best night's sleep ever. And even if you don't care, even if you think this is all just a bit fluffy and being too kind and you haven't got time, can you just remember the last time you really slept well? Man, it feels good. Doesn't it feel good when you sleep really well? It's like, oh man, I slept so well. I feel so good. And then you're like, you're nicer to everyone. You smile at everyone. You're more fun to be around. Sleeping well is so amazing.
Yeah, I've totally overhauled my productivity and how I function. So for me, my most productive hours are like 5:30 a.m. until before, because I work full time, but I do all of this in the other, and people say, well, how do you find the time? Because I prioritize my health and my well-being and my sleep so I can be more creative. And so I know in the afternoon, after I've done a full day's work, after we have dinner, it is rest time for my family. We rest. And we go to bed early. And doing that means that I can get up early and I give to me first. I do my morning routine. Then I do my writing, my creativity, you know, all of the other things I want to accomplish. And then I go do my job, knowing that I've already done all the things that I wanted to do for me before I even start my day. And I hope other people I work with would feel this way, but I feel like I show up to work ready to be available to people because I'm offering myself from an overflowing source. I have the energy, I have the mental well-being, and I also know I just have to get through that and get home. And then it's just about rest and eating well and being with my family and loving my son and husband. And then getting to bed in my, you know, pulling down the covers, setting up the environment, getting into bed and just feeling like, wow, I got so much accomplished today, even before 7 a.m. And I can just rest knowing that I get to do it all over again tomorrow, right? So it is life-changing. And I'm also devoted to my health and well-being. So I'm not choosing those habits that I know don't feed that. So as much as I love that caffeine kick at 3 p.m. because I suddenly feel productive again, it is a disruptor. And it means that, you know, 8 to 12 hours later, I'm still going to be feeling the impact of that. And that's going to interrupt my sleep, which means I won't be able to get up at 5:30, which means I don't give to myself in the morning, which means I feel grumpy. I, power through my day. I never get the time to myself. And then I'm even more exhausted when it's time for bed, rather than approaching sleep feeling already rested and ready to welcome it.
I love the way you have perfectly described the difference, the like before and after, and this prioritizing of yourself, what brings you joy, and sleeping well. And it's just, I love those two descriptions. And it's really, really clear talking to you that you are, that those changes you have made enable you to give so much to the world. I mean, you speak with such knowledge and passion, and you're just such a gift to the world. I can't thank you enough for this episode. It's got so much in it, and I know it's going to help so many people. Your work is, it's just like, I just feel uplifted. You're just like a nourishing person to talk to, and that's because you nourish yourself first. And that's the difference.
Yes.
That's what happens when we put ourselves first, and we really, that true kindness, which is quite like a tough kindness. It's like I can do that and zone out and not look after myself, or I can actually I get to decide those choices. You are just, I don't know, you're just one of life's lovely humans, and it's just such a joy to talk to you. It's just amazing. Where can people find out how to connect with you? Where can they buy your book? And you have this lovely free download from your website, Top Tips for Sleep, which is just really worth getting hold of. I will put it all in the show notes, but I'd really like to give you an opportunity to say how you like to be contacted and how you like to work, or anything you want to say.
Absolutely. The easiest thing for you to do is go to my website, because everything exists there. So it's www.beingwellwithkelly.com. So you can go to my book page and you can order my book. You can also find the book on Amazon if that's easier and quicker for you, especially if you're across the pond. I'm not even sure how long it would take to send you a book from me to you. And I'm going to be teaching a free webinar coming up April 24th. It's going to be 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what is that? 5 hours ahead for you. So sometime in the afternoon. It's called Spring Clean Your Sleep Routine. So for those of you who love spring cleaning or hate spring cleaning, I'm going to teach you my top tips for that, for overhauling your bedroom space. And I'm also going to give you a free PDF, which has a checklist. So we love a checklist. We love things that just tell us exactly what to do. So that's what it does for you. You could just follow through and do all those steps. I've done all that hard work for you. So that's where you can find me. I have a free Facebook group, which is also Being Well with Kelly. And in there you can see more of my journey. It is April. April is both Occupational Therapy Month and Poetry Month. And poetry is like the other thing that is super joy-filled for me. So I'll be sharing lots of original poetry. And I actually could share one now if we have time, if you're up for it.
We will put all of those links in the show notes. So do make sure that you get onto that webinar, which sounds amazing. But yes, please share some of your poetry. I feel like we could do a whole series of podcasts between us. This is just...
Let's do it.
Really,
I'm in.
Let's do it, definitely. But let's get a little bit of your poetry in before we wrap this episode up.
Yes. Okay. So this is entitled, I Get To. I get to change my mind, the lies and hiding of shoulds, coulds, woulds, no longer chosen to define my presence and essence, essentially rebranding, because I can, I want, I desire, I get to. I get to disidentify with my mistakes, mishaps, oversights, didn't get rights and roles for a girl who was good, nice, unimportant, uninvited, to take part with her brave heart in the discussion at the table. I get to. I get to recreate my look, my home, my process, my progress, my story. In fact, I'm rewriting my history as her story. I get to. Here stands a woman in full grasp of her power, reaching up and out and down, living life out loud, embracing mistakes as a mistake. I'm taking it back, starting again and blessing my words, which broke my back, restacking my odds in my favor because I get to. I get to say no as a sentence and not feel bad, feel pressure, feel regret, or exist in FOMO. No mo FOMO for me. I choose fearless, courageous, hell yes to me and what lights my soul on fire because I get to. You do too. You get to choose your path, persuasion, point of view, periods of restoration, parts you will keep, parts you will discard. You get to take the advice of others, your mothers, your brothers, those you place on pedestals, and those you allow to weave into the tapes in your mind. You get to release all that does not serve you, light you up, create joy, or make more meaning in your life. We get to be unapologetically, uniquely us. Use your choice, raise your voice, and be who you are because you get to.
I have goosebumps.
Thank you.
That, yeah, I need a copy of that. I'm sending that to my membership. They'd be like, because we've done the whole should, could, oughts, the daring to be more you. And wow.
Yes. So that's my teaching in a nutshell, in a poem.
I love it.
Poetry is something really special to me. It's my healing medium. And I don't often write the poems, I channel them. So they come to me and I write them down as fast as I can. Sometimes I don't get them. But this is one that I feel inspired to put out there and share with people, that matter of choice.
Powerful, very powerful. So, right, we are going to get that everywhere. We are going, I feel that there is more work for us to do together. But I want to wrap up this episode with huge gratitude for sharing your story so openly and so perceptively. There's so many insights there, and your work, your help with sleep, and that poem. Just, yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was an honor.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast. If you find this podcast has lifted your day, inspired you, or helped you in any way, please take some time to subscribe or share it, or preferably both, so more people can find out about my work. To connect with me, please email me at heidi@heidimark.co.uk. That's Heidi, Heidi, at heidimark with an e.co.uk, or visit me on all the normal social media platforms at Heidi Mark.